I don't think, Zach, anything happened in that game that made me change how I feel about Moore from before the game to now
Yeah.
after the game. And you're right, he did not look good against Texas Tech. I didn't think that. He did not look good against Indiana. And you and I were texting about this and joking that, we saw on Jets Twitter specifically after the Texas Tech game, people were already making excuses for Moore about like, oh, it's a good defense. Oh, it was this. Oh, he hasn't done that. The minute you have to make excuses for quarterbacks, it's DOA,
Yeah.
dude. Like it's done.
Yeah.
Like just stop it. And we've lived with this. Like we've lived it with Sam Darnold. We lived it with Zach Wilson. You live it with honestly, we lived it with Justin Fields as well, where you're not looking at games like, oh, he had a great game against a great competition. You're like, oh, look at that throw. You know what I mean? You're making excuses. But my thing with Moore is that if you talk to anybody who evaluates the draft, either on the amateur level, like the media perspective that you're talking about, like the Connor Rogers and the Dane Bruglers and the Todd McShays, like you talk about all those guys, or you go the route of the people that do it professionally with scouts and coaches and executives, they all told you the same thing about Moore. The guy has a tremendous head on his shoulders. He's an immensely impressive, mature kid. He has all the physical gifts in the world, but he is very immature when it comes to play because he simply has not played. He's in that Anthony Richardson mold of he just needs steps or he just needs reps. He just needs time. That's what Moore needs. So what you saw against Texas Tech was an example of that. What you saw against Indiana was an example of that. This is a player, and I was talking to Connor Rogers about this, and we both said the same thing. If he is having to play NFL games next year, he's probably going to get himself in trouble. And that makes me wonder where it's not necessarily about the money per se. Like $10 million, if we're going to go as high as he can probably get from Oregon, you can't compare it to the $50 million that he would get as being a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. However, if he is as mature as people say he is, does he believe Dante, and I don't know, I haven't talked to him, but does he say, okay, I can get $10 million from Oregon. Again, life-changing money, $10 million, considering he probably already got $4 or $5 million this year. Take the $10 million, go back to Oregon. It's not about passing up $50 million. It's about getting $10 million, continuing to develop, making myself a better quarterback that's ready for the NFL next year, and then going back in the draft where, in all likelihood, he's still going to be a top 5 pick. Is he going to be 2? I don't know, because you'll have Arch and all these other guys in there, but he's still probably a top 5 pick.
I mean, I don't know if you can say probably, because I think there's been
Top
many
10,
cases. No, I'm saying there's been many cases of guys who have that pedigree and then go back to college and they tank their draft stock. So, like, that's kind of the thing here. So you have, on one hand, you have a guy who's inexperienced, and the history of inexperienced guys isn't very good. And on the other, you have, in recent years, guys who go back when they have a first-round grade. It often goes terribly. This year is a good example of that with Drew Aller and Garrett Nussmeier. He's a different prospect, but Nussmeier was a guy that was going to go in the first round if he left last year. So there's risk attached to that. But like you said, at least the risk is mitigated a little bit by the fact that he'd be getting $10 million or whatever it is from Oregon. So I don't know. It's going to be fascinating, and the noise around all the everybody since Stephen A. or whoever started it, or Todd McShay, there's been even more analysts now coming out and be like, you should avoid the Jets. You should avoid the Jets. And it's gotten so loud that he probably has heard it by now. I don't know if that means he's going to listen to all these random national analysts. I would hope that's not how he bases his decision. But, Dylan Raiola just announced he's committed to Oregon, which is at least interesting because that's like a former 5-star guy. He's been a starter in college football. The reporting was like he would sit in redshirt for a year.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
But I can't think of any. I mean, this is a different time, I guess. But why would he have gone to Oregon if that was the case? Like he could have been a starter somewhere else. So I feel like that's a pretty good indicator that they think Dante Moore is leaving. The fact that there's still not like a definite chance, he has to decide. I believe by like the next week or two. So we'll have some clarity soon. So right now it's all just us like speculating a little bit. But in terms of like just the prospect himself, like. I mean, if the Jets want to take a quarterback this year, he's who you have to kind of take at number 2. If you don't want to take him, you have to talk yourself into Ty Simpson, who has even less experience in college than he does. And that doesn't look that appealing. And then there's Trinidad Chambliss, who we can get into in a minute. But, I don't know. The Jets are, it's funny because Jets fans went into that game being like, we want Dante Moore to show out so he can declare and become our quarterback. And now you're hearing Jets fans who saw how he played and you're like, no, stay in college. We don't want you anymore. So it's going to be interesting. It's, it's kind of a valuation that can determine the job security of a coach and a GM. And, the Jets coach and GM got to survive a little bit longer than usual when they failed on Zach Wilson because they got the Aaron Rodgers. But usually when you get a number 2 pick and if it fails, you don't last more than like 2 years. I've looked into this. It's like most head coaches don't last more than a year or two after a failure at that draft pick, and most GMs don't last more than 3 years after that. So it's like, you're banking your job on this guy if you pick him 2 overall. Yeah. And do you think he has the goods to be the guy to bank your job on it? They're banking their job on everything right now because they're probably going to be on the hot seat this year. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not like sold on Dante Moore as a no doubt guy, but there's potential there. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know that he's going to be ready right away as a rookie. And this is a team that kind of needs someone who's ready. So
the way that I compare it to Zack, and it's a little different because the Giants got him later and just moved up into the middle of the first round to go select him. But the way people talk about Moore, and having watched him now play a few games here, it does remind me a lot of Jackson Dart. And now Moore has immensely more talent than Jackson Dart did. I mean, Jackson Dart in no way, shape, or form was viewed as a player who was physically worthy of a top 5 overall pick. And I love Jackson. I think Jackson's a hell of a football player. But his ability as a football player is what makes him a great quarterback. When you look at Moore and his accuracies and his arm strength and also his athletic ability, that's where you're talking about a guy that is talent-wise absolutely worthy of a top 5 overall pick. But the similarities between the two lie in that Dart was viewed as somebody that was not going to be ready year 1. That was the thing about him coming out. It was he played in that Lane Kiffin offense. It was so quarterback friendly, but not pro friendly. He wasn't making reads. He wasn't even doing a snap count under center. It was always clapping. And it was that he was going to need to sit, watch, develop, and maybe in year 2 he would be ready to play. So what the Giants did was they drafted him, but they protected themselves if there was a situation that arose where he was not going to be ready to play. And what that was Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and then you draft Jackson Dart. Now, what the Giants realized early on, and if they were honest with themselves and hadn't just promised Russell Wilson the starting job when he first signed here, Jackson would have been the starter week 1. Like, they would have turned it over to Jackson because very early on, I'm talking OTAs, minicamp, you saw this guy working through drills, and you're like, again, Zach, I joke about this all the time. You and I have never seen a franchise quarterback as a young player very early on to be like, oh, that guy's this is what so-and-so was doing early in his career, and he turned out to be a franchise quarterback. We've never seen it. I've seen Zack. I know what not a franchise quarterback looks like, but I don't know what a franchise guy looks like. Jackson, early in those OTAs and minicamp practices, he was doing things where you were like, that's more advanced than what I'm used to seeing. That's different than what I'm used to seeing. He's already, I remember him going to a line in 2-minute drills and changing the play based on coverage. Brian Dable giving him call-it periods where they turned the headsets off and they said, Jackson, go call your own plays and move down the field. And watching him go down the field and score touchdowns and make plays where you're like, this guy can do it now. Again, Giants promised Russell Wilson. They let him start, and then eventually they pulled the plug before the Chargers game, and then Jackson went out there, and look, he's in contention for Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. So there is a chance that you get more in the building, and for some reason, professional coaching clicks in ways that it doesn't, and he's ready. Yeah. But based off of what I saw, you can't bank on that. This can't be a Zach Wilson situation where it's Zach, James Morgan, and Mike White. You need somebody that can play, whether it's a Kyler Murray or a Marcus Mariota or a Jacoby Brissett, somebody that can start 17 games for you if it's needed, and then you give more time to develop and then eventually go to him when he's ready.